This case takes place in the United States of America in March of 2019. Dr. Thomas Burchard was a 71-year-old doctor and psychiatrist from California. From a young age, he studied hard and attended medical school in his teens and 20s. Upon finishing his degree in medicine, he realized he wanted to be a psychiatrist, and so he pursued this as a career. He worked at some of the very best hospitals in the country before settling at the community hospital of the Monterey Peninsula. He worked at this hospital for over 40 years, and he was very well respected in his field. He was qualified in many areas, and because of this he was able to prescribe a number of restricted medical drugs, prescriptions that are known to be sold for a profit and are addictive. Thomas enjoyed his career a great deal and found it to be incredibly rewarding. He pursued a PhD and became a doctor in his field. He married, but he never had any kids of his own, but he did his best to care for his young patients. He would usually deal with kids who had autism and ADHD, and some who came from disadvantaged backgrounds and didn't have a lot of money. According to those who knew Thomas, he loved magic just as much as he loved his job, and would regularly attend magic conventions. During the sessions with kids, he would perform magic to help them relax and to put them at ease. He would sometimes turn a $1 bill into a $100 bill. He would then surprise them at the end of the trick and allow them to keep the money. He would also purchase medicines for his patients if they were struggling with money. Thomas earned a decent amount of money from his time as a psychiatrist. However, despite earning a good living, those who knew Thomas said that he would rarely spend money on himself. He would instead gift it to other people. Those who knew Thomas described him as incredibly generous, and if he saw somebody in need, he would literally give them the shirt off his back. At some point, Thomas separated from his wife. His ex-wife during the divorce said that he had relationships that were very inappropriate with other women, and that he spoke to multiple other women online. In 2002, he met a woman named Judy. They met during a trip to Las Vegas, and they hit it off right away. They became close, began a relationship, and moved in together. The couple never went on to have any children together, but Thomas was a part of the lives of Judy's 4 children. Through the years, Thomas continued his work, earning plenty of money in the process. In particular, Thomas had a soft spot for children in need. If parents came to him asking for help with something in regards to their little ones, he would do the best he could to resolve the issues and help in any way he could. Although not formally diagnosed, Thomas and those who knew him believed that he was showing early signs of Alzheimer's or dementia. His family did have a history of the disease, and it's something that he worried about a great deal. His girlfriend Judy later said that he would forget the simple things, and his judgment became impaired. Judy wanted Thomas to fully retire, and she was making plans to help him do this. But Thomas didn't want to abandon his patients. But Judy was concerned that he could make medical errors and potentially harm someone. She told him it would be for the best. Due to his good nature, Thomas earned a reputation for helping others. Media outlets have painted Thomas as a seedy old man who only helped young, single mothers. However, it does seem that he helped men, women, whoever was in desperate need. This was how he met a 25-year-old woman by the name of Kelsey Turner. Kelsey caught wind of the doctor's good deeds, and she decided that she would use this for her own gain. She contacted Thomas via his email in 2017, telling him that she was soon to be a single mother, that her military boyfriend was leaving her with 2 kids, and she would soon be on the streets, left to fend for herself with her little ones. She told Thomas that she was a successful model, but that she didn't have enough credit history to be able to acquire the accommodation she would need for her family. Kelsey made sure to focus on how this would be a detriment to her kids, making the emails all about them, when in reality, she wanted the money for herself and attempted to manipulate Thomas. In reality, Kelsey was not a successful model. She was sometimes able to get the odd job as a nude model and was published in an Italian version of Playboy. She never earned large amounts of money from this work, and the money she did make would go towards partying and plastic surgery. She would also try and use her social media to portray her life as perfect, trying to befriend celebrities in the upper echelons of society. Thomas offered to sign for a house for Kelsey, and he did. She then told him that she needed a car, and he ended up paying for her rent and car entirely. Friends of Kelsey asked how she could afford such a car and house, and she told her friends about Thomas. They asked if this was some kind of sugar daddy situation, but Kelsey denied this. She said that Thomas just had a big crush on her and was helping her out during a tricky time. She also tried her best to get Thomas to prescribe her some pills that she would be able to sell. Thomas refused and instead referred her to another doctor who would be able to prescribe her the medication if she actually needed it for herself. This other doctor declined to give her the medication too, realizing that she didn't need them and likely wanted to use them recreationally or sell them for profit. Kelsey also likely realized that Thomas was suffering with Alzheimer's and used this to her advantage. According to Judy, Kelsey had also been able to forge checks in the name of Thomas and was able to cash them in. Months into this arrangement, Thomas realized what was going on and he decided it would be best to cut off Kelsey completely. Judy also believed that Kelsey was taking full advantage of Thomas, and she supported Thomas with the decision to cut her off. Kelsey was not a patient of Thomas's, she was just someone he was helping. He told Kelsey that he was no longer going to be paying for her house or her car. Thomas had seen that on her social media she had been going out a lot with her friends, and she seemed to have little to do with her kids. Not paying for her own car or accommodation allowed Kelsey to live a more lavish lifestyle than she otherwise could have. She wanted desperately to keep on to what she had, so Kelsey came up with a plan to extort Thomas. Thomas was very proud of his reputation, and she knew this. She told Thomas that if he were to cut her off, she would begin to make a series of allegations against him. She threatened to contact the police and tell them that he had used his power as a child psychologist as a means to get close to vulnerable children, and that he did inappropriate things to them. These were unsubstantiated claims and allegations, but they were claims that could destroy his life. Thomas was terrified that these accusations would ruin him, and he was too afraid to go to the police. So, he continued to pay until he could think of another way to put an end to the extortion. At the end of 2018, Kelsey lost custody of one of her children, and she moved with her 4-year-old son to Las Vegas. Once she reached Las Vegas, she told Thomas that she was sick and couldn't afford to work or afford to care for her son. She asked Thomas for help again, and Thomas gave her some money. In 2019, social workers appeared at Thomas and Judy's front door. Thomas was out, but Judy answered the door. The social workers were responding to a tip-off. Someone had reported anonymously that the doctor's mental state was in decline. Judy spoke with the social workers about some of the symptoms that Thomas was experiencing. He had forgotten names, forgotten where he had parked his car in a supermarket, and didn't recognize people who he was close with. She also told them that Thomas needed help, as a woman named Kelsey Turner was taking advantage of him. When Thomas returned home, Judy told him that he would soon be evaluated by a medical professional regarding his dementia, and he accepted that he would soon have to retire. Although this would never come to be, as in 2019, Thomas decided to fly to Las Vegas. He told Judy that he wanted to see for himself if Kelsey was telling the truth. Judy begged him not to go, but on the 1st of March 2019, Thomas caught a flight to Las Vegas and made his way to the house that he was paying for on behalf of Kelsey. Upon getting to the house, he was shocked to discover that all of the rooms in the large home were occupied. On the top floor, Kelsey lived in the master bedroom with her 27-year-old boyfriend named John Kennison. Her son's bedroom was also on the second floor. A woman by the name of Diana Pena lived there too. Another roommate, Jeremy, slept downstairs. All of them were living there rent-free. From this point onwards, it will be from the point of view of the two housemates, Diana and Jeremy. On the 2nd of March, Jeremy's girlfriend showed up at the house. She had heard how much money Thomas had given to Kelsey, and she wanted some of that too. She began flirting with Thomas. This behavior angered Kelsey a great deal. She didn't want anyone else taking what she saw as hers. She saw Thomas and his resources as her property and saw Jeremy's girlfriend as a thief. Kelsey told Jeremy's girlfriend to accompany her to a local store. When they got into the car to go, Kelsey began shouting at the woman, accusing her of trying to take away Thomas from her. When they got back to the house, Jeremy and his girlfriend quickly left. Later that night, Kelsey looked at Thomas's phone. As she flicked through his messages, she discovered that her own mother had also attempted to reach out to Thomas. Kelsey not only found text messages about Thomas sending her money, she also saw that her mother had sent revealing photographs to Thomas. Upon seeing this, Kelsey became enraged and began telling Thomas that she would now tell the police that he had been abusive towards his patients. She also became violent. Thomas then ran away from her and locked himself inside the upstairs bedroom. According to Diana, Kelsey's boyfriend John kicked down the door that Thomas was hiding behind, and he was armed with a baseball bat. Diana could hear the commotion coming from the room, so she ran and went to see what was happening. She saw John Kennison standing over Thomas, with Thomas on the floor holding his head. He was bleeding from his head and had a bruise on his temple. Thomas seemed to be rather dazed and confused. Diana took the bat from John, who then went downstairs, whilst Diana fetched Thomas a glass of water. Thomas told Diana that the blow to his head was rather severe. He said that he needed medical attention right away, and he made a point of telling everyone that he didn't want Kelsey to get into trouble. He told them that if anyone asked, he would tell the police that the story was he got jumped by a gang of people outside and was mugged. Thomas went downstairs into the garage and got into the back seat of the car he had purchased for Kelsey and waited whilst Diana asked for someone to drive them to the hospital, but neither Kelsey or her boyfriend came to help. Thomas then told Diana that he was worried that Kelsey wanted to kill him. Diana waited with Thomas for some time before Kelsey emerged from the house into the garage. Kelsey began shouting at Diana and demanded that she leave Thomas alone and go inside to clean the house. She also demanded that Thomas go inside too, but he refused. Diana did as she was told, and she walked into the house. But minutes after entering the house, she heard Kelsey shouting in the garage. She was shouting for her boyfriend John to knock Thomas out. Diana returned to the garage to see what had happened, and that's when she saw John holding a gun covered in blood. At this point, Diana claimed to have panicked and began crying. She did as she was told, and she cleaned the house. From this point onwards, it's believed that Kelsey and John took the car and drove it into the desert with Thomas in the back seat, bloodied and beaten. After not hearing from Thomas for a while, Judy became worried. She assumed that one of two things had happened. Either Thomas became confused with his dementia and had gotten hurt, or Kelsey had done something horrific to him, and she was leaning more towards that Kelsey had done something to him. She contacted the police a number of times, telling them that she believed Thomas was in danger. A number of days passed, and finally, on the 7th of March, she heard from the police. Thomas had been found dead. His body had been stuffed into the trunk of a car and abandoned in the Nevada desert. A passerby had reported the car to the police after he found it abandoned on a dirt road in the desert. When the police arrived to check it out, they could already smell the body from a distance. His body was evaluated by investigators, and due to the extreme heat, his body had decomposed at a faster rate. Thomas's face was completely unrecognizable. He had been badly beaten with a baseball bat and the butt of a gun, and part of his ear had been severed. Judy wanted to see Thomas, but she was advised not to come. Judy said in an interview, "They couldn't do any restoration on his face. They told me he was green and blue." When exactly Thomas died isn't clear, but it seemed that he had likely been tortured, and his death had not been quick. Kelsey and her boyfriend went on the run. The insurance of the abandoned car was in her name, so she was placed as a person of interest right away. Kelsey was arrested on the 21st of March. Shortly after, Diana turned herself in to the police. With her lawyer, she told the police she could tell them anything they needed to know, and shortly after this, John was arrested too. Kelsey and John pleaded not guilty to murder charges, but Diana pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of accessory to murder. It then transpired that Kelsey was pregnant, and she used this to her advantage and tried to garner sympathy. The proceedings lasted for over 3 years, due to what was happening at the time. Grand jurors were shown pictures of Thomas's injuries, which deeply disturbed them all. His death had been a long and brutal one. It also came out in the media that there were nude photographs of adult women on Thomas's phone, but there was absolutely no evidence that Thomas had acted inappropriately towards children like Kelsey had claimed. The total amount that Thomas had paid for Kelsey's expenses came to around $300,000. Through the legal proceedings, it said that Kelsey showed no remorse and maintained that she was innocent. A trial would never fully take place, as in 2022, Kelsey Turner entered a plea deal to the charge of second-degree murder. She entered a guilty plea, but maintains her innocence. She was sentenced to 10 to 25 years in prison. John Kennison pleaded guilty in June of 2022 to second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 18 to 45 years for his role in the murder. It's believed that John was the one who actually killed Thomas, with Kelsey cheering him on. Diana was given 3 years probation, as she was a major help in bringing them two to justice. Judy has stated that she is frustrated with the coverage of Thomas's death. She maintains that there were no sugar daddy arrangements like the media claimed. As to the images of naked women on Thomas's phone, I'm unsure as to what this entails. Kelsey's mother could have just sent them unwantedly to Thomas as a way to try and get money from him, and the images were just there in an email exchange. I'm not entirely sure, and I wouldn't want to jump into any conclusions. Judy also describes the killers as pure evil. When news spread about the death of Thomas, many people took to social media, stating that they were once patients of his and that they only had good things to say about him. They said that he was one of the kindest people they had ever met, and recalled him performing his magic tricks in his office that was filled with stuffed animals. Judy also said that Thomas's death was especially hard on her grandson Tom, as Thomas would play Santa Claus every Christmas.